Welcome to this unit of revision on medical ethics. Today we're going to be looking at issues raised by cloning. For the exam, you'll need to know what cloning is. You'll also need to know the issues that are raised by cloning. And finally, you'll need to understand the Christian teachings and how this affects Christian responses. So, for question A on the exam, you'd need to be able to define cloning. This definition would ensure you get the mark that is available for that question. There are, of course, different types of cloning, and for the exam it would be important for you to know at least two. One type of cloning is therapeutic cloning. In therapeutic cloning, human embryos are cloned and then used for medical research. By law, these embryos have to be destroyed after 14 days. A second type of cloning is reproductive cloning, and you may be familiar with this from your science lessons. This is when cloning is used to produce identical copies of an animal, as it was for Dolly the cloned sheep. So, what are the issues that cloning raises, and what are the Christian responses?
The doctor who pioneered research into cloning animals back in the 1950s and 60s with his work cloning frogs has said that human cloning could be possible in the next 50 years. Gordon told the Daily Telegraph, "I take the view that anything you can do to relieve suffering or improve human health will usually be widely accepted by the public. That is to say, if cloning actually turned out to be solving some problems and was useful to people, I think it would be accepted." Sir John Gordon's research on cloning frogs later led to the creation of the first cloned mammal, a sheep named Dolly, in 1996 at the Roslin Institute of Scotland. The controversy over cloning raises ethical questions about scientific practices going too far, and the safety concerns about the susceptibility of cloned animals to disease or other possible unknown consequences of the radical medical procedure. In vitro fertilization, or the process of making test tube babies, was controversial when it was first being experimented with, and now it is an accepted medical practice for infertile parents. What do you think? Will human beings be cloned in the next 50 years?
As you can see from that short video, there are many issues that are raised by cloning. It's really important that before the exam you think about your own attitude towards cloning and also your responses to the issues that it raises. For Christians, one issue that cloning raises is whether doctors are playing God. The issue raised here is about whether scientists had the right to create life outside the natural order of things. Christians, in response to this, as they develop their own thoughts and attitudes, will look to the teaching in the Bible. In the Bible, it very clearly states that it was God that first gave humans life. We see this in Genesis and the creation of Adam and Eve. And furthermore, God also gave humans the natural ability to reproduce. Again, in Genesis, Adam and Eve are told to go and multiply, to go and have a family. In Psalms, it also refers to God creating humans in the womb. It is for these reasons from these teachings that many Christians find it unacceptable for scientists to mimic God's creative power in cloning. A second issue is whether it is right to use humans as commodities. A commodity is a product, something that is produced for consumers to use and then dispose of when they're finished with. Because scientists are creating cloned embryos just to use for medical research, many feel that the embryos, which are the start of human life, are being used like products and then being destroyed. For Christians, once again, they turn to the teaching in the Bible. In the Bible, it's very clear that human beings have a plan and a purpose for their lives given by God. This is supported by quotes, for example, from Jeremiah, where God writes, "I know the plans I have for you." Christians also teach that life is sacred. This means for them it is holy and unique. For these reasons, many Christians oppose creating embryos for research and destroying them. It goes against what they believe is God's plan for human life. A final issue that you might like to consider for the exam is whether it is okay for scientists to use their knowledge to help humans. After all, the use of cloning allows medicines to be developed, and this use of knowledge is responding to human suffering, much like was suggested in the earlier video. Again, Christians will reflect on what the Bible has to say on this. It's clear in the Bible that Jesus wanted to help people. He showed compassion. That means he was moved by love and caused to act to help people. Jesus often heals the sick in the Bible. And so there are many Christians who would actually argue that using cloning, particularly therapeutic cloning, is an act of compassion. They would argue that God has allowed scientists to gain this knowledge, and as they use it, they are healing the sick. And so these Christians would therefore support cloning. So we've considered what cloning is. We've also considered the issues that it raises. And finally, you've looked at links to Christian teachings. So, what exactly can you expect in the exam? Well, you might get a D question, which asks you to explain Christian attitudes to issues raised by cloning. If you prepare for this type of question, you should also then be able to answer a question A, B or C, which requires far less knowledge and understanding. Can I remind you that when you answer a D question, you should be aiming for 3 short paragraphs, each one containing point, evidence and explanation. So why not practice writing an answer to this question, and if need be, look back through this video and make some more notes. If you're already on Twitter, why not go to @PrioriCofERE and follow. There you will find a lot more support for your preparation for your GCSE, as well as further revision links that I've also tweeted.